I'm Shaun Markey. Welcome to a show that's all about the fascinating world of antiques, collectibles, and folk art. In tonight's program, we'll be talking to Barbara Lucas and Nick Cameron, who are experts in their field of collecting. Plus, we'll examine several examples of the antiques and collectibles from their private collections. And we're going to find out what makes those items so collectible and valuable. So join me for an entertaining and fun half hour about antiques, collectibles, and folk art. And we'll be right back after these messages. My next guest, Barbara Lucas, is an avid collector of hooked rugs. She collects them, makes them, and is especially interested in hooked rugs from the Grenfell Mission of Newfoundland, Labrador. And that's what we're going to discuss with her. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you.
Good to have you here. Let's start with, you've brought a selection here of Grenfell Industries rugs. Maybe you could just tell us what is or was the Grenfell Mission?
The Grenfell Mission started in the late 1800s, actually 1843 to be precise, by Dr. Wilfrid Grenfell, who came from England to set up a hospital and social services for people in Labrador and northern Newfoundland. As time went on, he realized that there was very little source of income for the people who were living in the outreach, in the posts outside of St. Anthony's. So he started a cottage industry with of rugs, rug making. They would collect something called lisle stockings, silk underwear, and any other fabric that they could get their hands on, but mainly silk and underwear and stockings. And they would be shipped to these outports, and people would be given a whole bag of this material along with a burlap backing. And these people would then hook a rug. The patterns were also provided to them.
I was going to ask you that.
And then they were, the people sold them to the Grenfell Mission probably for about $25. And then from there they were sold in Manhattan shops and in England for much more than $25.
Now you've brought some examples with you here. I guess looking at the ones on the table here, what I do notice about them, first of all, is they're very fine rug hooking. They're very dense.
The trademark of Grenfell rug hooking is not only that they're fine, they cut the strips very narrowly, but that the hooking takes place from one end to the other. It's not hooked or in any other way. It has to be hooked from one side to the other.
So the people in the outports were provided the patterns, and then I gather they would hook them all through the winter until the next fishing season, send them back to the Grenfell Mission, and then they would be retailed from there.
That's correct.
So was it successful? How long?
Extremely successful.
How long did it last?
It lasted until about 1940 when Sir Wilfrid Grenfell passed away. And I think without his leadership, it deteriorated. It still exists today. You can go and visit the Grenfell Mission in St. Anthony's, but their production of rugs is very limited.
So how many different patterns would there have been over the course of that time? Are we talking hundreds? We are.
Hundreds, yes.
Right. And what are some of the common images, and what are some of the rare images?
A common image is what you see here, a polar bear with icebergs.
Right.
There's many, many different variations on that. One polar bear, two polar bears, one iceberg, two icebergs.
Big polar bear.
Big polar bear, little polar bear. Yeah, that's right. So there are many variations.
And then you have
icebergs.
Icebergs.
Yes.
It's always good to have icebergs. And then you have people of the North as well.
That's right. This was probably meant to be a purse. It's not your average rug that people would buy. I have a feeling somebody must have made it for themselves to turn it into a purse.
Right. So they did other things other than hooked mats for the floor.
Not for sale that I've seen.
Okay.
That I've seen.
Okay.
Another rare kind of rug is behind you, which this one doesn't have a map of Newfoundland, but many do. It was a gift to a doctor in the 1950s to thank him for his work. And so it was made by the local people there. I bought that one from eBay.
Really? You found it on eBay?
On eBay.
Where does one find the Grenfell mats these days?
eBay. That one was $3,500. Antique shops that don't know the value. These two I bought at the Textile Art Museum in Toronto. And they are both in such excellent condition because they were in somebody's drawer for years. They were stored. So you've got almost the original coloring.
Now, are they labeled?
That's a very good question. There are two factors that are important for Grenfells. One is the color, and the second is the label. There must be a label at the back for Grenfell Industries. If there's no label, it has literally no value.
Okay. Okay. And did they always use the same label, or are there different labels?
There are different labels, but I'm not well versed enough to know what period they were used, but there are different labels.
And these rugs you've brought are all labeled?
Yes, Shaun. Of course they're labeled.
I want to see a label. Let's turn one back here. There's a label. Look at that. Right? And it says Grenfell Industries, handmade in Newfoundland, Labrador.
Correct.
And that's the label you want to see.
That's correct.
On your Grenfell mat. Okay, good. Good. How long have you been collecting them?
Since I started rug hooking in about the late 1980s, I was rug hooking with collectors from the United States, and they prize Grenfell rugs.
Well, why did you? What do they prize about them, and why collect them?
They're number one, they are works of art. Number two, the hooking is superb. The technique is superb. Exactly what you mentioned, that the strips are thin, they're flat, there's no bumps in them, and the story that goes with it is charming.
Now I'm going to ask you a difficult question. Would you call them folk art?
No.
Oh, why not?
I would call them art.
Okay. Because they were done on patterns? And they weren't created from somebody's imagination? That's my definition of folk art.
It works. What you've just said works. But for me, they're still art because someone may get the same pattern, but hook it in a completely different way than another person.
And it's going to look different?
And it will look different.
Because they use different colored material, or?
They use different color material. They use a different size of hook.
Okay.
They may have chosen to put the green up here instead of there. So that's why I call it art.
So the quality, certainly not everyone could have hooked them to the same level of quality that the very good ones are. You must see poor examples as well that are still Grenfell but not done by the best of the best. So you do see ones that aren't quite as up to scratch.
I do. For example, this one here is not in good condition. It's got what they call holidays.
Okay.
Where
they took some time off?
Yeah, the people took some time off. But when there are gaps
They skipped a line?
That's right. When they skip a line, here the tree is missing a line.
I see that.
So that decreases it in value.
I see that. How many rugs do you have in your collection now?
Do you think my husband might be watching this
Might
show?
be, so be careful.
I probably have up to 20.
Okay, okay. And what images are you still looking for? Like if you got a chance to buy a good Grenfell and add it to your collection, what image would it have to be? And we only have a minute or so left, but I want to know what you're looking for.
I am looking to stop collecting. What I would like to do is encourage the Grenfell mission to take the old patterns and reproduce them so that people today can hook the beautiful works of art. That's what I would like to do. And to put my efforts into working with the Grenfell mission to do that, rather than buying more.
Right, right. That's a very good...
But I do have a friend who likes to encourage me to buy more.
Really?
Really?
Well, if once a collector, you're always a collector, right?
Right.
Thank you for coming in and talking to us about Grenfell rugs. They're a real treat to see them, and I always enjoy talking to you about rug hooking and Grenfell mats in particular.
In particular, yes. Thank you. One day I'll show you my collection.
Great. Look forward to it. My next guest is Nick Cameron. And I've got to tell you, when Nick agreed to come on and do the show, I was absolutely thrilled because he is a veteran collector and has superb taste in Canadian antiques and folk art. And as I said, I was delighted that he agreed to come and join us and talk about small wooden accessories. Nick, good to see you.
My pleasure.
Good to see you.
My pleasure, yeah.
So we're going to talk about small wooden accessories. Maybe you could just generally describe that category for me. What are we talking about here?
Things that were, for the most part, utilitarian. Obviously smaller than furniture, although some of these things could be categorized as furniture, like this one right here. Things that were designed for use. In a lot of cases, as you can see here, they were also decorated to make them a little more interesting than just utility.
And what attracts you to them? Why do these pieces find their way into your collection?
Because they're neat, colorful, where the form, I mean, it's very Baroque. Design of this the hearts and the pinwheel on this candle box.
Oh, sure.
This is what attracts, and yeah.
Well, let's get into it and talk
Yeah.
about these individual items that you brought.
Yeah.
You mentioned this candle box, so let's talk about it.
This candle box, I acquired it at an auction sale, an estate sale in Markham, Ontario, and it obviously has Germanic icons, the hearts and the star and so forth. The old gentleman from whom the sale was held, his mother was actually a Mennonite herself, and
It's got fabulous color with the red accents and then the hearts. I mean, to see hearts on a small box like that, that must have been, whoever made it was making a personal statement.
Yes.
Don't you think?
Yes, and this thing, when I first saw it at the sale, it was filthy. You could not see the hearts or the star. And I thought, well, and I thought, okay, I'm not going to sweep it off too much because everybody else is going to see the hearts too, so we'll just leave it at that. So, and that's how I got to bring it home.
Well, it's a great thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now let me move this one up in front, and maybe you can talk a little bit about this wall box.
This is a bit of a mystery. It was picked by a long-time collector dealer in the Renfrew, West Carleton area. It has some things about it that indicate that it's Germanic, but there's some Irish things to it too. Of course, this cutout star in the front here
Right.
was kind of what attracted me to it.
I bet it did.
Yeah.
The color is, now that's not an original paint, that's an overpaint?
That's an overpaint, yeah. Nice Irish green, Ottawa Valley.
Right, right. And how much does overpaint affect the value of an early piece like this versus if it was in original color? Would that be, does that overpaint make it 50% less valuable, or does the form, the very intricate form, make up for the difference?
Yeah, the form does largely make up for the difference. If the overpaint is country enough, to us at least, it's not going to detract too much of the fact from, depends on what was underneath in the first place. If it was a dark red situation, and this thing pops, you know, so it's, obviously I'm not too uninfluenced by the fact this is painted this bright green color.
Would you ever touch that or try to take that color off?
Not a chance, not a chance.
Why not?
Because that's the way I brought it home. It's as found, and we don't do much in the way of refinishing things. We buy them as is, and when you refinish things, you take the history off that piece. A large amount of the history, the patina, the patination, is removed, and it becomes just another something, you know.
So do you have any refinished pieces in your collection?
Oh, Lordy. Maybe one or two, you know. Yeah.
Maybe one or two.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about another wall box, this red one here. What can you tell me about this?
It was picked in Augsburg up in Grenfell County from a Germanic family, continental German, with a very, very, very Baroque continental German influence.
Right.
And nice original crusty red paint.
What would you date it to?
Probably third quarter 19th century.
Now does it have round nails or square nails?
Lordy,
okay.
I've never looked. I never got past all the other stuff.
Yes,
So to me, it was
exactly,
important.
exactly.
So yeah. Well, it's probably got some round nails in there. So
Okay.
I don't worry about that. So.
No, not at all. It's a great surface, and that's original paint, right?
It is,
not
yeah.
an overpaint.
Nope.
And that's the way you like to find it.
Yeah.
And then coming around to you, we've got another wall box, and this one here is really quite a piece of. Well, it's gone on to. Is it folk art at this point?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was made by an itinerant woodcarver who wandered around Waterloo County in the third, fourth quarter of the 19th century. His name is Fred Hoffman, and he stayed at the homes of various Mennonite and Amish farmers. And he was always welcome as a visitor. And whenever he left, he would leave some memento of his visit there, like this. He's done several of these things. Little boxes like those over on the shelf over there.
Right.
He was welcome because he was an avid fisherman, and when he stayed with the Mennonites, the women were always happy to see him because he'd go down to the river and come home with a whole stringer of fish for supper. So he was sort of a 19th century hobo, what we might call he was a very educated man, very well spoken, well educated, and he was probably what you call like a college educated hippie. From
then,
back in those days. Yeah.
So I'm going to now move on to talk about this sweet little document box up on top here.
Okay, I guess now this one came out of an auction sale, again for a Germanic family named Schmidt up near Hanover. We got it for a number of reasons we bought it, but the one thing that really sold us on it was this feature here.
Look at that.
It's dated
1866.
It's got flowers and things on it, and on the top, it's got a bird.
Right.
Right on the.
We'll just tip that over.
Right there. Yeah. So, And there was somebody up there bidding for somebody else whose name was Bird, who wanted it too. Sorry, fella. He came home with us.
Well, and it's got a great crackly finish.
Yeah, it's
and
finished.
this faux inlaid decoration, right? On other more formal pieces, that might be actual inlay, string inlay with wood.
True.
But here it's painted on as an effect, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
And then we come down to
this would be I would think would be fourth quarter 19th century probably.
okay.
Yeah.
And now we come down to this blanket box. Is this a child's blanket box?
I'm not sure whether it was made as a child's blanket box or whatever reason. It's obviously form-wise, it's except for the foot being a little bit on the exaggerated side. I think it was meant as an example, I guess you might call it, of possibly a toy for a child. Possibly, it doesn't seem to have an awful lot of use. It's highly decorated with and it came out of the estate of an Ira Reeser in a Markham family up from Sunnydale Corners in Simcoe County.
So this is like a simulated, trying to make the pine look like a better wood, like mahogany?
Yes, exactly, yeah.
Right. And how would they get that effect? They put a base coat on first?
And then they would start streaking away. So,
and to see if they could get it to look like mahogany.
Yeah.
So we're down to our last minute or so here, Nick. I just wanted to ask you if I was at an auction and I saw something I really liked and you liked it too, what should I do?
Good question, huh?
Are you going to stop bidding?
We probably had to have a conference first and decide, okay, if I stay off that, will you stay off that? That's what we do, right?
Fair game.
That's right.
Fair game. Well, I want to thank you for bringing in these
You're welcome.
really fascinating things.
It's a pleasure.
It was great to talk to you. We've spent a fair amount of time on the show talking about folk art. I'd like to take a couple of minutes to discuss the term folk art. You know, there are a lot of definitions for folk art. Personally, I like to think of it as works of art created by individuals who have no formal training in art. Therefore, a folk artist is typically not familiar with terms like perspective, vanishing point, foreground, background. In terms of human form, for example, they're not concerned with accuracy as far as anatomy is concerned. Essentially, folk artists paint, carve, weave, or sculpt what they have in their mind. And despite the lack of formal training, the majority of them are quite successful at capturing their artistic vision, whatever that might be. Now, collectors often divide folk art into two categories: traditional and contemporary. Traditional folk art are works created, say, before 1950. That's before television and mass media, which was and continues to be very influential on folk artists. So contemporary folk art, then, is everything created after that date. Maud Lewis, for example, is considered a contemporary folk artist. Someone, on the other hand, like Anna Weber of the Kitchener-Waterloo area, would be considered a traditional folk artist. Now, some of the same factors we've mentioned during the shows, surface, age, condition, form, and provenance, they can all come into play with a piece of folk art. A piece of folk art that scores high marks on all of those factors is going to be a high-quality piece. Folk artists often create works of art based on their memory of their early years or on their occupations, for example. So in Atlantic Canada, we tend to see an abundance of marine-related folk art. You know, fishing, boating, sea life. And farming and farm-related activities are also a popular theme in folk art, as well as logging, maple sugar season, Christmas, time is also popular and a subject you see. So there's some background information on folk art, and I hope you found it interesting and useful. I'd like to thank Barbara Lucas and Nick Cameron for being here on the show. It was another interesting and fun program. See you next time when we meet more collectors and learn about their fascinating antiques. Thanks for watching.